how we can do this, resource efficient economic system. Since we are discussing about policy, there are a lot of different kind of policies. Maybe you have heard about green procurement policy, green public procurement policy. You might have heard about virgin material taxation, or removing or the removal of the virgin resource subsidy. You might have heard about recycled content mandate, where government make a mandate that, let's say, this must, for this kind of industry, this much percent of your input material must be recycled one. So government impose such kind of policy. Or the extended producer responsibility, making producers responsible to recycle, right? Government make a mandate that, let's say, car manufacturer saying that your car's waste must be recycled. So this is producers' responsibility to make sure that they collect all the waste from their car. So you extend producer responsibility beyond the selling and then forgetting. Producers must be liable for the entire cycle of the product. These kind of policies are called extended producers' responsibility, or government use and upscale themselves. For example, government use more efficient products, right? So there are lots of such cross-sectoral policies, which are very important policies from the viewpoint of achieving sustainable goals, because one of the major indicators of SDG is also material throughput and the material efficiency. These are a very important indicator in our SDG goals. Now let me say quickly a few words about each of them. Let's say green public procurement. Are we procuring green products, right? In many countries, European countries, it's a mandatory, but in many other countries also it is voluntary. But they have set some kind of guidelines. For example, in Thailand's Pollution Control Department, PCD, has outlined 44 product category. They are certified for the green procurement. So Thai government agencies are encouraged to use those green certified products, right? Green certified products. Similarly, there's a Dutch system, there is a Japanese system. In many countries, they have a law or the acts on green purchasing, right? That means you procure the green products, right? So these kind of policies are quite common. Now, this procurement policy really aid the material efficiency strategies. Then the other one is a virgin material taxation, right? So basically, virgin material taxation are not very common in some cases. In Europe, especially on minerals, they have used. That means if you use a virgin products, then there is a taxes higher. Then if you use a recycled products, less taxes. Then there are other called recycled content mandate, right? You can easily say that for some products, when you do packaging material, you can say that 50% of your packaging material must use the recycled product. Government can make such regulation, right? Then they are forced to use the recycled material. Then the whole market of the recycled product would also go up, right? Now, UK government imposed the plastic tax from 2022 April, 2 years back. Now it says that plastic packaging produced in or imported into the UK must contain at least 30% recycled plastic. Otherwise, 200 pounds per ton of the plastic will be imposed, right? These kind of policies are called recycled content mandate. That means certain percentage of the content there must be recycled in the product. So these kind of policies really, for example, a plastic packaging in Canada must contain 50% recycled content by 2030, right? So these kind of mandates really help promoting circular economy. And I already mentioned to you about extended producers' responsibility, right? So basically, the liability of the producers is not after selling product, they will forget about the product. Now the producers are also liable to its entire life cycle of the products. They are supposed to take back, they are supposed to recycle, right? Creating such kind of extended producer responsibility, force the producers to take into account environmental impact, other things also in that process. Of course, there are many different kind of policies to implement this concept of extended producer responsibility. Product take back requirement, required rate of recycling, deposit refund systems. So there are lots of different approaches are used, and this approach is very much used in the waste sector in particularly, and also vehicle automobile sector. So these are very, very important policy there. You can look at a bit more detail. I'll not go, but usually for extended producers responsibility, sometimes big company, what they do is that it's very difficult to collect and do. Then they create one organization, producers responsibility organization collectively, and they give the whole role for that company to take back products and really manage the whole cycle. So usually they create something called producers responsibility organization, and that organization liaises between consumer, government, and the producers, and they manage the whole circularity for the producers, right? So that system is quite common in Germany, Japan, and several other countries. Now, in the this scheme, in the electronic section, from of course it varies, but in packaging industry, electronic industry, vehicle, battery, tire, and other sectors, such kind of system is quite emerging, right? Especially in OECD country or developed countries. SDG achieving is not an easy task, right? We said that we are failing to meet SDG, and some people blame that it is because we don't have a very clear support mechanism, right? Everybody agreed to SDG in this global climate summit, but there is not enough implementation thrust, and capacity is very weak, and also financial mobilization is very, very weak. So some of these things could have been done better. So these are some of the arguments. So that's why it's very important that investment should be there. And how much money do you need? Billion, 10 billion, 500 billion, 1 trillion, $10 trillion. How much money we need in order to implement SDG, right? So, there's a UN Sustainable Development, STSN report in 2015, which says that, which actually says that there's an annual investment gap of $1.4 trillion. Again, don't get confused about investment gap versus how much investment needed. Anyway, we are doing investment, right? Now how much additional needed in order to meet SDG goals? Of course, we have been doing, right? We keep on doing, but how much more is needed than what we in normal cases we would have done? That is called investment gap. So that report said that annual investment gap is about $1.4 trillion on the annual basis. Then World Investment Report 2014 said that annual additional investment need to meet SDG target is $2.5 trillion. So 1.7, 2.5, some people might come up with a $4 trillion. But what is important here is that this is an investment gap, right? Anyway, if there would not have been SDG goals, we'd have anyway invested certain. Now, in order to meet SDG goal, how much more we need to invest, right? That is called investment gap, right? Now the investment need is more, but investment gap, they are saying in the range of 1.5 to 2.5 trillion dollar, right? That means that much more money we have to mobilize than what we have been mobilizing now. It's kind of incremental, additional. Now, one such study shows you, where this incremental money is needed. This report, I said that, 1.4 trillion dollar. It tells you in which sector the more money is needed. In which SDG. So there are lots of such global estimates are there. In one journal paper, 24 that journal paper covered 24 identified sources covered investment need for 9 SDG, done with different methods, because again the investment need also differs from study to study depending on methodology, right? So they have come up with a range that how much is the incremental and total investment needs for different SDG, right? So different studies have come up with a different number. So let me not get into the number itself, but what point I'm trying to say that there's a highest investment gap are found in SDG 13, which is a climate action, right? Highest investment gap is showing in the climate action, up to the $3 trillion annually, followed by the SDG 6, especially in the clean water and sanitation, up to the 1.6 trillion annually, right? So anyway, the final conclusion, what I'm trying to say, regardless of these numbers, who knows which number is correct, that there's a lot of additional investment needs, and the question comes where that money comes from, right? We need trillions of dollars additional investment than what we have been doing. So where the money comes from, right? That money can anyway come from private sources or the public sources, right? Private sector has been spending money. Private sector money is basically tax money, right? And the private sector money, now how to mobilize more and more private sector money, and also how to increase the base of the public sector money in order to channel more and more funds to the achieving SDG. Now, that's a global one. Now, I just look at the case for Nepal. In Nepal, we have need assessment on costing for the financing strategy for achieving SDG. In Nepal, they found that investment gap is huge. It's in the range of 585 billion Nepalese rupees, which means about 5.7 billion US dollar, right? The average annual financing gap is about 5.7 billion US dollar at 2015 price for the entire period. And you can see that there's a huge gap, public resource gap, and also the more money also private finance gap. So we need to mobilize money from private sector and public sector. So again, question at how to mobilize that money, right? That is something very, very important. So this is a case for some kind of comparison from Bangladesh. As you know that Bangladesh is much bigger than Nepal in that sense. So in Bangladesh, they are saying that total additional investment cost for the period, this period, almost 13-year period would be close to the $1 trillion for Bangladesh. So there's a lot of such investment need done, and then they try to show how much financing need, but this financing need to be communicated internationally, and the developed countries, ODA and others need to help developing country in order to do this. I mean, why we always argue why we are not meeting SDG target. One of the reasons is the implementation is poor because of a lot of financing and technological and know-how gaps, right? These are important indicator. So this is also infrastructure investment needs in Nepal. So let me skip that, and let me conclude. Policies are a very, very important part. Policies are integral part to meet SDG. And why we policy needed is because the way we are doing is not optimal, either due to the market failures, due to institutional failures. We are following sometimes wrong course, and we need to correct. That's why the policies are very, very important. especially in the valuing externality, correcting market, utilizing various kind of, policy instruments is very, very important. Of course, SDG is such a broad area. You have many policies which cuts across, and we have many, many sector specific policies, and you have many types of policy instruments, right? So it's a complex web, but these are very, very important aspect. Now, policies are broader, but I try to make you distinction between policies and policy instruments, right? So don't get confused when you hear all the word policies. So everything seems to policies. So policy targets, policy statements, policy vision at the higher level is different from the specific policy instruments used in order to achieve certain policy objectives, right? So please understand that distinction. That distinction is very important. And also, I described you about SDG policies. So SDG policies need to have a very broader frame, and it has to be a cross-cutting elements in nature. We discussed about many of those cross-cutting elements in SDG. But one thing is very important for us to understand is that there is no silver bullet in these policies. Every policies are context specific. Certain policy worked in certain country may not work in other country, right? So these policies are have common features, but they differ from country to country, and we need to always place specific policies. Though we have a wide range of policy instruments. We discuss about regulatory policies, market-based policies, fiscal policies, information-based policies, voluntary policies, right? R&D policies. There are different policy instruments. But also we discuss about, especially for climate change, things like carbon pricing, carbon tax, emission trading system are widely used. And also, especially for the resource depletion side, there are a lot of new kind of policies coming up, like extended producer responsibility, recycled content mandate. There are a lot of new emerging policy discourse, which makes our economy more circular. It makes more green, and bit more, fit within the biological limits. So this kind of, policies are very, very important for SDG. And also we said that investment need is huge. The investment need runs in the trillions of dollars, right? Investment needs are huge. And when you say investment need, always remember two things. How much is investment needed and how much is the investment gap, right? How much additional investment we need than our normal BAU scenario in order to meet SDG, right? That make the distinction, and also make a distinction between investment needs and the financing gap, right? So we have been financing certain amount, but given the investment need, our financing is not enough, then we have to find a way to meet that investment need. How do you, investment need means this much money is needed, right? Financing means where the money comes from, right? How to finance. At the moment, we have been financing this much, but we need to finance more depending on investment need, right? So then where the money comes from? Money always can come from two sources anyway, from the public sources or the private sources. Public sources had a wide range of options for government. Then from how to mobilize more from capital markets, from the private companies, the businesses, how to bring them into the investing in the area which would help us with the SDG, right? So how to mobilize private sector, what kind of facilitation we need to give to private sector, what kind of partnership we have to do with the private sector by the public sector in order to bring more private money, more private financing into the SDG domain. These are very, very important on how to fulfill a gap, and especially it needs a clear strategy to bridge that investment gap and the financing situation. But this is a tall order. And once again, I don't want to end my lecture with a pessimistic note, but we are not in the track of meeting SDG, which only underscores the fact that we need to do more. We need to do more from policy side, we need to do more from investment side, right? So that is what I like to emphasize.